On this week's FPL Happy Hour.
Well, my current draft that I've got, and we'll go through them shortly. I've squeezed in Bruno, Salah, and Son, but my team is quite unbalanced, I feel. And after this conversation, I feel like I need to take Son out.
Three, two, one.
Hello and welcome to FPL Happy Hour, episode 4 of season 3, with myself, Sham, otherwise known as FPL 2 Guys 1 Cup on Twitter.
And myself, Rob, otherwise known as FPL Panda.
Rob, how are you, mate?
I'm good. I was interested to see how you were going about in that intro in episode 4 of season 3, and I forgot your name and everything.
I was all right in the end.
How's it going? Not long to
All
go.
right, mate. I know, it's only just over a week now?
Yep. Time of recording, we're Wednesday evening, so 9 days until, this time in 9 days, deadline would have gone and we'll all be in the shit again. So here we go.
It's come round pretty quick, isn't it?
Yeah. And it looks like in the next sort of 5 or 6 days, we'll probably see a hell of a lot of movement with the news in the last 5 or 6 hours of Danny Ings signing for Aston Villa, which has caught everyone off guard, and I think a lot of people have ripped up their drafts and started again.
Yeah, when Fabrizio Romano doesn't tweet about it until after it's been made official, you know that nobody knew about it.
Yeah, it was very hush-hush. And I mean, there was a lot of talk about Danny Ings as a possibility as a Kane replacement, etc., etc. And it was, I think that's why it was kept very quiet, to try and Villa wanted them, obviously probably made contact a while ago, but we're waiting for the funds to be released, made available. We expect in the next sort of 24 to 48 hours for Jack Grealish to be a Man City player. So
was there a price for Ings released or anything? I haven't seen
the
price.
I think what I've heard is 30 mil,
okay.
which
Seems
is
about right.
I think it's a bargain. To be fair, I think Villa are getting a top striker, and they're quickly looking like a team that should definitely be competing sort of up at the top end of the table next season, despite the fact that they're losing their talisman, but they're gaining Emi Buendia, who was brilliant in the Championship last season. They've signed Leon Bailey, who was good in the Bundesliga. And then Danny Ings now as well, and it's things look like they're taking shape, and they're spending what potentially is this 100 million that they're getting for Grealish. It looks like they're spending it quite well with these sort of little 20 to 30 million deals to bring in more creative players, and they already had the likes of Watkins there, and from what I'm hearing now, a couple of people in a couple of group chats I've seen, Watkins would likely move into that Grealish position.
Yeah.
Ings will play as a number 9.
He was playing there before when he was at Brentford, I believe.
Yeah, and then Ings would play as a number 9. And then Buendia and who's the other Bailey will play. Buendia as a 10 and Bailey on the other side. So yeah, it makes sense. Really exciting stuff from Villa Park.
Right. Okay. So tonight is all about the premiums. We'll be discussing premium defenders as voted for on Twitter by you guys, and we'll be taking a look at some premium fielders as well, followed by our updated drafts. Some talk about how I'm getting on with the ownership percentage strategy that I'm doing. and I was talking to Rob just before we went on air about this. So we'll be discussing a bit about that today, and then some Twitter Q&A if we've had any. Right, Rob, let's start off with the premium defenders, and you're in charge of this bit.
Yeah, so I mean, we put this out amongst the Twitter community on a poll, along with I really do want to get stuck into some breakthrough players and some newbies into the Premier League at some point.
It's never being voted in.
No, we'll probably end up doing it next week, just as a sort of a quick fire look through at some point. So, I mean, we've looked at one of the obvious people missing from the list I'm about to talk about is Luca Dean, but we did look at him in episode 1. So if you want to find out more, if you haven't looked at episode 1, then yeah, definitely go back and take a look. We went quite in depth with the stats on him. So we've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, 7.5 with Liverpool, and his teammate Andrew Robertson, 7 million at Liverpool. João Cancelo, 6 million from City. England hero Roberto Carlos, 5.5 million Man United. Not so much England hero Ben Chilwell, 6 million Chelsea, and Reece James, 5.5. Future England hero, maybe. Depends if Kyle Walker slows down anytime soon. 5.5 Chelsea. So yeah, we just wanted to have a look at what the numbers were for these players in the 2020-21 season in the Premier League. So yeah, it doesn't include any of the European games, doesn't include FA Cup, League Cup or anything. We're literally just looking at the league games, because I think in some ways a player like João Cancelo might suffer slightly because of this, because he did make plenty of appearances in Europe, and City went all the way in 2 cups, 1 cup, and went a long way in the other cup. So yeah, so first of all, yeah, matches played out of this list. Andrew Robertson is the only one out of the 6 to appear in every single game last season, which I was surprised at.
Wow.
I looking back at it though, I can't remember. Like, you can't remember him not being there for a game, and yeah, if he wasn't, then they might have been even more screwed than they already were. And Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Sorry, Rob. Just before you go on, and I know you're going to kind of talk through the stats and who comes out top and stuff on all of them compared to the 6. But for those watching on the video, you'll see a lot of highlights on Trent and Robbo. And one thing that instantly kind of hit me was, wow, like they dominate the stats on pretty much every single category. No wonder they are so expensive. And I never, like, I knew that about Trent, but I didn't know that as much about Robbo. And it's like how dominant that pairing is. I know you're going to talk about it now in some detail, but that was just the first thing that kind of highlighted to me. I was like, bloody hell, no wonder they're so expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on. I'll let you carry on.
So yeah, Trent was second in this. He made 36 appearances. Those were the only 2 to play over 33 or over game, like 33 or more games last season. The rest maybe due to injuries and rotation as well. So this led to Andrew Robertson total, like, sort of average 90 minutes, 37.6. So he missed 0.4 of the season, which is it's crazy. So yeah, just under half a game he missed throughout the whole season. FPL points, Andrew Robertson takes it again with 161. But that's probably due to the extra 2 appearances he made over Trent Alexander-Arnold, who got 160. João Cancelo 138, Chilwell 139, Reece James and Shaw. Well, Shaw's 124 and Reece James 112. But it actually works out that per 90, Ben Chilwell 5.47 was the best, with João Cancelo at 5.41 point FPL points per 90, just behind him.
Would you would you think, Rob? Would you argue so far? So if we're looking from a total points point of view, Trent and Robbo in the last kind of 2 to 3 seasons, I believe this is probably their worst point scoring, right? Mainly because Liverpool didn't keep a lot of clean sheets. The year before, Trent got something like 15 assists, not as much last season. Same with Robbo. But if you look at the likes of Shaw and Chilwell, Shaw probably had his best season for a long time. Chilwell had a good season for him, comparing. Obviously, Cancelo doesn't get as many minutes. James was getting more regular starts. Yet they're still only they're 30, 40 points behind Trent and Robbo. And yet Trent and Robbo had their worst season.
Yeah, I mean, I think in past seasons, especially 2019, 2020 and 2018, 2019, you were almost starting every game with sort of 6 points in the bag from both of them because of the amount of clean sheets they were keeping. So their floor was probably, say, 5 points, and then everything after that, like the goals, the assists, bonus points, and everything, was their score for the week. And we didn't have. I mean, their floor last season was probably more around sort of 1 to 2 points, because there was plenty of times that they conceded more than once as well. So yeah, I can see that. I mean, Cancelo, you'd think that if he started more games, he'd be well up there. Like 5.4 points per 90 is an impressive return. I mean, with the likes of Shaw, Shaw especially, the amount of clean sheets that United kept last season was rubbish. But with the strengthening that they look like they have made defensively, I can see them keeping a lot more clean sheets next season, especially if the likes of Varane and Henderson really settle into the side. Because I think with Henderson, with goalkeepers, I think it's about being played consistently. Like that's why it's very rare that you see teams like even Pep. He doesn't rotate Ederson round with Scott Carson or whoever, does he? Just Ederson just plays because you don't really need to rotate your goalkeeper, and it's actually better for the goalkeeper to keep playing because they can use the sort of games where they're quieter to sort of look at the game tactically and what they should be doing with their defenders and everything. So yeah, it's you get with the goalkeepers, and well, with Henderson, I can't see the rotation that we saw towards the end of last season, especially. So I think United, they're going to get that consistency along the back four, and I think that will help Shaw and hopefully add maybe 15 to 20 points just off of clean sheets alone across the season, which then puts him sort of up there amongst the other guys. So anyway, right, goals. Not much to speak of from a goals point of view. Chilwell was the best with 3. I mean, yeah, disappointing returns all round. I mean, Trent is normally good for 4 or 5 goals across the season, but he was very disappointing. João Cancelo, though, took a lot of shots and tried to score, but failed to. Yeah, that surprised me that Chilwell was the top out of them with 3 goals, and that also obviously makes him the top goals per 90 at 0.12. So yeah, nothing really to write home about with the goals. But with the XG, so expected goals, Trent does lead the way at 2.8, and I'd take it from that. I'd take it. It's the direct free kicks, sort of in and around the box, that he gets those chances, and that builds up over the course of the season. And his XG per 90, though, is 0.08, which is him and Cancelo tied first for that. So yeah, that kind of backs up what we were saying about the disappointing season that Trent had, especially where we'd expect more from him. Like, we're not even talking about the clean sheets here. This is from an attacking point of view. We'd expect more and want more from him, and if he's going to be sort of good value for money at 7.5, like, considering a year ago we were talking about like £8 million defenders, weren't we? So yeah, if he hits some form, though, he could end up hitting ownership levels that take him close to that as we move through the season, if he performs well and Liverpool are keeping clean sheets and they're back to their best again, which is still to be seen upon the return of Virgil van Dijk. Assists, Trent and Robertson both tie the lead with 7 each. João Cancelo disappointing with only 3. Reece James only 2, which surprised me. Luke Shaw and Ben Chilwell both with 5 each. Really surprised me about Reece James, and it's made me think twice, especially as it seemed like Azpilicueta at times gets the nod ahead of him. Whether that's still the case next season, I'm not sure, but we shall see. I think the luxury with Chelsea is the fixtures at the start of the season for them, where they play, like, they've got the Palace fixture on game week 1, but then they've got Arsenal, Liverpool, Villa, who we know are going to be stronger after that, and we've got that luxury. And we looked last week at the fixture swing for them, so it kind of buys us some time to have a look at the likes of Chilwell, Reece James, Azpilicueta, Marcus Alonso, and see what's going on. I don't think Marcus Alonso's got a look in, to be honest. I think the main concern is Reece James versus Azpilicueta on the right-hand side.
Rob, question for you. So Trent and Robbo, 7 assists last year. How many players and who got more assists than them, if any?
Well, in the graph. Defenders. I was going to say the graph defenders. I'm looking at now, there's a lot.
Don't look at any graph.
I reckon 2 or 3.
Who do you think?
I don't think, probably none. Let's go 0.
Okay. So Dean got 9, Sufal got 9, and Cresswell got 11. Surprising, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had a complete brain fart there, but yeah.
To be fair, I wouldn't have put them higher. Like, I genuinely didn't realize that they got more assists than Trent and Robert.
No, you're just saying that because you wanted to just say, why are we not talking about Sufal and Cresswell here?
No. Clean sheet potential, etc. But I was just surprised to know that they got more assists than them. There's just something to keep an eye
on. Yeah, definitely. Especially at the prices that, like, the likes of Sufal is 5 million.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a bargain to be had. Expected assists over the course of the season, 8.1 for Trent. And we know that there were times when, well, for much of the season, Mane wasn't really firing as we'd expect him to. Firmino wasn't really firing as like you don't expect Firmino to be a 20 goals a season kind of player, but like he wasn't producing what you'd expect from him. So yeah, I think with a more consistent Liverpool side, yeah, you'll be looking at more from Trent. Robertson only 6.9 expected assists over the course of the season. But Luke Shaw at 5.2. Now, considering for much of the season he was supplying a team that doesn't like to cross, and at United they just don't like to cross the ball, and he tends to a lot of his assists tend to be on the overlap and that drilled ball, sort of low ball across the 6-yard box. Whether we see United trying something different this season or not, with Cavani probably taking a more of a prominent role, if he keeps his fitness, is something to see. Although I think it's looking more likely now that Martial will be the number 9 in game week 1, because Cavani doesn't return to training till I think Monday, so only 6 days. Well, 5 days from the start of the season for United. So yeah, that's an interesting one. It'll probably lead me more to them, not crossing the ball that much anymore. Next up, so shot creating actions. So these are actions that led to either directly assisting or supplying someone with the chance to score, or supplying the supplier with the chance to score. And that is Luke Shaw that's top of that with 3.76 per 90, or 111 over the course of the season. The top, like, overall was Trent Alexander-Arnold, 123 over the course of the season, but only 3.65 per 90. So again, I think it's, if we see a fluid, more consistent Liverpool side, then his numbers will skyrocket up. Goal creating actions, Andrew Robertson with 15 over the course of the season. So not necessarily being the assister, but so he got 7 assists. And then on top of that, there was 8 times where he fed the ball to the person that got the assist in there as well. And he's also top per 90 at 0.4. And then you've got Trent at 0.39, Cancelo at 0.39, Shaw at 0.37, Chilwell at 0.35, and Reece James quite a way behind with 0.19. So again, I think with Reece James, I think these stats might be a bit harsh towards him. And with how Chelsea were, like we've spoken about, Liverpool's inconsistencies in the final third, Chelsea's were horrendous at times last season in the final third, and with Timo Werner not really finding the form you'd expect him to, but with the potential incoming of a certain number 9 from Inter Milan, that could change with with a certain Romelu Lukaku coming in and being that lethal finisher, because he's not going to have to do. So at United, he had to work very hard between the lines because it wasn't a great United team. But I think with that Chelsea side, he's not going to have to. It's very much going to be a case of doing what he does with Belgium and just sitting up top and being fed the ball and putting it in the back of the net. That's what I can see his role, very much like how Drogba was back in the day. Not having to come in deep and be that link-up man, just stay on the shoulder of the last defender and put the ball in the back of the net, and that will only help the likes of Reece James and Ben Chilwell over the course of the season, if that deal happens. yeah, I think well, in the last sort of 24 hours, it's kind of heated up a little bit with that deal happening with it looking like Haaland. That transfer's kind of broken down completely.
So looking at all these stats, Rob, what has it kind of taught you about who we should be looking at, and in terms of who would be your, if you were going to choose two premiums, which I'm guessing most people will be looking at, is two out of premium defenders, and then maybe like one mid price, and then a couple of cheapies. Who would you be looking at from here?
I think Trent is a no-brainer. Unless you were struggling to find a 0.5 for someone, then you have to go Robertson. I think to go with both of them's tough.
What about without either of them?
I definitely would not go without either. I think you have to go one or the other. I'd go Trent, but if I needed 0.5 to knock a 6 million midfielder up to a 6.5 million midfielder, or a 7.5 forward up to an 8 million forward, which a few people might be trying to do in the next few days, then yeah, why not go from Trent to Robbo? But you're losing a fair amount of set pieces in shooting positions, because Robertson will still have half the corners and he'll have free kicks in other areas of the pitch, but in the very dangerous positions, it always seems to be Trent that's on them.
You know what's surprising is that we're kind of saying, and I do agree with you, by the way, where essentially we're saying you need to have at least one of Trent or Robbo, right? You need to. He's only 27% owned. And it might sound like a lot, but we would probably say the same about Salah, right? We would probably be, if we were to do, which we are going to next talk about premium midfielders, would probably say with as much emphasis, you need to have Salah. Yet Salah is like 40+% owned.
Well, yeah, I mean, out of these defenders at the moment, at this moment right now, Luke Shaw's 48.2%
Yeah,
owned.
exactly. Which is the highest player in the game, or second,
Which
I think. Second
is
highest.
crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
there was talk a couple of weeks ago about the rib injury that he was carrying from the semi-finals of the Euros, and played through the final of the Euros with this broken rib. But he's trained on Monday, trained Tuesday, trained today. All fine up in Scotland with the United squad. So you'd assume that he's slotting straight back in come next Saturday against Leeds. But 48.2%, that's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I love Luke Shaw to bits, and I think during the Euros he showed how good a fullback he is, and he proved a lot of people wrong that were calling for Chilwell to start ahead of him in that England side. But do I think he's 48% good? Not too sure about that. Like half the managers in the world, and it's probably I think it's about 3.5 million people registered on the game. It's like 1.75 million people have him in their teams. Which
surprises me when you compare it to TAA at 27%, right?
Well, yeah, it's up to 28%, so it might have increased. Someone's probably sitting outside my window listening to us record this. So yeah, he's up to.
Well, it needs to be a few thousand people outside your window.
Yeah.
To listen to record.
I'll go and check in a minute. Yeah, so yeah, 28.2%, and Robertson 13.4%. Like you're looking at. Actually, I could save 0.5 and go a little bit differential and go to Robertson if you fancied a little punt. And I wouldn't argue against it. The stats say like more or less go for it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't let the sort of the name Trent Alexander-Arnold or the price or the ownership put you off. Like if you're not going Trent and you're not going Luke Shaw, then
So assuming you have one of Trent or Robbo, then there's one space left. And obviously we didn't include Dean in these statistics because we've already spoken about Dean's statistics. But I think where it's a case of deciding another premium to choose, I think his name should come into it. Based on this and the stats that we went through in the first episode, would you, out of Dean, Chilwell, James, and Cancelo, who would, and Shaw, who would you be looking at there for the second one?
Luca Dean.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't got the stats available, but Everton's opening fixtures: Southampton at home. They've just lost their main striker. Leeds away, slightly tougher. Brighton away, and then Burnley at home. And it's like I could see them keeping two clean sheets there and scoring some goals if Benitez gets them playing the right way, which we obviously spoke again about in episode 1. So I'd like Luca Dean for those opening fixtures. If I knew that Cancelo was definitely going to start against Norwich, there's an argument to have Cancelo in. But I think with City, with Spurs away, then they've got the Norwich game, then they've got Arsenal, then they've got Leicester. I think I'd rather go with like a safer option. And then, I mean, Luke Shaw's fixtures are great. But the only concern for me is I just want to see how the defence lines up and how they all play together. I think Luke Shaw, after the transfer window's over, because I do think United are going to make, there'll be at least another one, possibly 2 signings, of which one of them will be a defensive midfielder. I think just waiting till after that before I bank on, because I think if I bring in a United defender, that's it. I'm having that United defender for the whole season, and it would be Luke Shaw that is that defender. So yeah, I want to learn a bit about the United defence because we've seen lots of players come to the Premier League that have been top quality. I think Varane is brilliant, but I'm also dubious about his form in the last couple of years since the World Cup in 2018. It has dipped considerably playing, but he's also been playing in a Real Madrid side that's form overall has dipped considerably since their run of European Cups. And I'm very wary of it still before I go and throw my eggs into the basket. So I'm not too keen on going with like a big defensive back, like full of a defense full of expensive fantasy assets. I'd rather spend that money elsewhere on the pitch where there's some really good fixtures to attack with certain forward, and we'll speak about it when we go for our teams, with certain forwards out there and the midfielders. Like, why would I want to be spending ridiculous amounts of money like in that back line when I don't really need to, because there's plenty of value to be had as well, which we've spoken about in the last couple of weeks.
Right, cool. Shall we move on to our next subject then?
We shall. Let's do that.
Right, so let's talk about premium midfielders. Now, we haven't got any fancy graphs for this one. I'm gonna talk you through the most expensive players at the moment that we think are should be considered as options, and I'll kind of talk you through the pros and cons from an eye test point of view in terms of what we think, and then afterwards Rob will go through some stats on that. So at the moment, the players we're going to talk about, we've got Salah, who's 12.5. Now Mane is 12. I don't think we're going to talk about. We won't discuss him as much, just because his ownership is quite low, and generally people are choosing between Salah and Mane. We've got KDB at 12 million as well, and then Bruno at 12, Sterling at 11, which again he's quite lowly owned, and we don't know whether or not he's nailed in that City side, so we won't be talking about him. Son at 10 million. Rashford is 9.5, but he's injured at the moment. And then you've got Sancho at 9.5 and then Mahrez at 9. Right, so let's start with Salah then. My opinions on Salah. So to me, I think he's over 48% owned in the game at the moment. To me, I think he's essential. I think you've got to have him in your side just because of what his potential could be. He's over 200 points a season. I don't think there's much more to add from that point of view. The people that have gone without Salah in the past have been burnt, and I just think because of his ownership, he's too risky to take out. I think the main difference the main reason why I wanted to have this discussion is because I'm struggling between Bruno and Son at the moment. And when I was thinking about this earlier, Bruno is 40% owned. Salah is 48% owned. Bruno's 12 million. Salah's 12.5. Similar in terms of percentages, ownership, similar in terms of price. However, why is it that I'm thinking I can't go without Salah, but I can go without Bruno? And for me, the main thing is even without penalties, Salah still always consistently performs, whereas Bruno has gone through spells of 10 weeks where he's only got a couple of assists. Whereas I don't think Salah's ever done that. And Salah, generally, I think the most he's gone without returning is like 3 or 4 games. And that was rare. That was last season, whereas seasons in the past, he hasn't done that. And as we know, and we spoke about...
I think it was longer than that last season when he scored the hat-trick coming on against Palace in November time, I think it was. And then he went a long time without any returns.
Salah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's rare for him, right?
But then towards the end of the season, he was brilliant again. Like, he was back. Yeah. He caught form, and I think he's very much a player that when he's on form, he's on form, and he just catches fire and off he goes.
And the thing is, we saw glimpses of that with Bruno at the beginning of the season, where he was on form towards the back end during restart, where he was on form. But then the end of last season, he was only really getting returns from penalties and the odd assist here and there. And I just think that he is expendable at the moment. The other player is KDB. Now, KDB is important to Man City and will be a starter, but their fixtures at the beginning of the season aren't great. But then with Man City, do we need their fixtures? Like, as in, do they need to have good fixtures in order to do that? And I don't think KDB's spoken as much about. Like, why is it that you haven't considered KDB?
Price
over Bruno, for example.
Over Bruno, fixtures. It's simple as that. And not knowing how the City side are going to line up at the start of the season. The opening fixture, although we see Spurs as a weaker side, they're still an unknown under Nuno. We don't know how they'll line up, who the players are that they're going to line up with. And it's the same though with City. It's such an unknown from that opening fixture. I don't think we'll learn much from the Community Shield game on Sunday. I don't think that it's going to be a case of look at what team City start on Sunday and that will be the team that plays Spurs the following Sunday. So I just prefer the fixtures. I think, United's first 4 are favourable. I think, like the Leeds game's the hardest out of them, and we saw goals galore in the Old Trafford fixture last season, and we could potentially, with the United team, how it's set up, or how it should set up, will be playing with a lot of pace and a lot of energy, which will match the lead side. And I think they've got the quality there.
If Bruno's ownership was, let's say, 10%, right, would you still consider Bruno? As in, would you still have him in your side?
If his
Because
own,
that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, like, because obviously I'm talking. I spoke about it a couple of episodes ago that I'm doing the ownership strategy at the moment, and I'm struggling to find reasons to have Bruno in my side versus Son, because I really like the look of Son, even more so without Kane. But the only reason that I'm feeling like I'm having to have Bruno in my team at the moment is because of his ownership.
Yeah, I get that. I played with the idea of going Sancho over Bruno, but then Sancho doesn't join up with the squad until Friday to start training. So I'm not sold on whether he starts or not. I think he's very likely to start in that first game, but there's not enough there for me to go, oh, I could go Sancho over him and then squeeze a bit of money out of somewhere else to then upgrade someone up to Son, especially knowing that first fixture, Son's got Man City.
But he's got a very good record against City, you know.
Yeah, but
Son.
Yeah, but look at the players he's going to be playing with. That's the simple thing for Spurs at the moment is I don't know what their lineup or formation is going to be. And like earlier on this afternoon, I was listening to the correspondent podcast from Planet FPL, and they're not too sure how Spurs will line up and whether it will be a 5-back, a 4-back, whether it will be, although James thinks it'll possibly be a 3 up top. And
With Bergwijn, Son, and Lucas.
Lucas, yeah.
Which is what they had a 2-2 draw with Chelsea today, and that's the formation they played with.
And it just, I want to learn more about Spurs, and I think I can afford, because no one's not many, no one's all jumping on Son right now and getting him into their teams. There's a few people. It's not really ridiculously low owned, but there's not enough for me to have to worry about not having him in my team. I'd rather sit and watch the Spurs City game and learn about both teams before I go and commit to spending that money on them. And knowing that with the fixture swings in those first sort of 3 to 6 game weeks, I could easily free up that money gradually to then bring him in.
Do you have confidence in Bruno performing over Son though? Let's say in the first 4 game weeks. Yeah, let's just look at the first 4 game weeks. Do you have that confidence that Bruno will outscore Son? Or is it a case of?
I think it's 50-50. I think, yeah. So if we let's write off the first game week for both of them. Like but both of them, that's the toughest fixture. They both play Wolves. Son's then got Watford and Palace. Bruno's got Southampton and Newcastle. So they've I'd argue that Bruno's probably got, out of those 2 fixtures, Southampton, Newcastle, he's probably got the slightly easier one than the Watford Palace, and that's purely because of, I think Palace are going to be spending more money in the next few days, and I think we'll see a lot of movement into Palace. But especially by game week 4, I think that Palace will be a lot stronger than they are now. Whilst with Southampton, I'm not sure about Southampton completely, and Newcastle haven't strengthened at all. So I'd prefer going with Bruno, knowing as well that there will be assists in it for him. Like he could easily come out of those games not scoring, but grabbing a couple of assists, still walking away with 3 bonus points at the end of the game. And yeah, you're coming away with 8-9 points, despite him not scoring. Whilst I think Son, you're relying on
whilst you're protecting yourself with the 40% ownership as well.
Yeah, and whilst with Son, you're taking that gamble, and you're hoping that the likes of Lucas, who was poor last season, but that has been decent in pre-season, Bergwijn, who he disappeared last season, didn't see much of him or not consistently at all. Yeah, do I want to? It's more a case of who do I trust more, the other 10 players on the pitch for United or the other 10 players on the pitch for Spurs, and I trust the other 10 players on the pitch at United more, to be able to bring along the returns for the. Well, we're looking at the 2 talisman for those two sides.
Okay, so then the other players to consider, who's cheaper at 9 million, is Mahrez. And is it rotation fear for you there, Rob, as well?
Yeah, rotation with Mahrez, especially with what's looking like the Grealish signing coming in. He's played a lot of minutes in pre-season. I think he started most games for City in pre-season. That doesn't make him a nailed on to start the first game of the season, or any game after that. We know that from experience with Pep Guardiola, but his numbers are reasonably good. Like even last season, just under 0.5 goals per 90, which is a decent return for a midfielder. He had an XG per 90 of 0.26, XA per 90 of 0.27, which again, not too bad. But out of Bruno, Salah, Son, De Bruyne, Sancho, it's the worst out of the lot of them.
Really?
Yep.
Well, do you want to talk through those statistics then, whilst we're at it?
So out of those 6, top XG is Salah, 0.61. I mean, he's the furthest forward out of those 6 players through the game. There's lots of times when at Liverpool he plays as a number 9, and Firmino kind of drops back, and then it's where Trent's going so far forward, he plays as a right winger at times, and so it means Salah can afford to drop in. Firmino can drop back into that hole behind him, and that's kind of how it's naturally gone when Liverpool have been at full strength. But last season we weren't able to see that because they were weaker at the back. Trent had to work a lot harder defensively, so it just there wasn't that fluidity there. But 0.61 XG for Salah. You'd expect him to be the highest. Next up after that is Bruno at 0.45, but let's take away the penalties, and it's 0.23, which is horrendous. Funny enough, Salah's is 0.48 without the penalties, but it's still a long way ahead of everyone else. So let's carry on without the penalties rather than keep Bruno in, because he's the lowest non-penalty XG. After that, Kevin De Bruyne 0.34 XG, with a 0.79 non-penalty XG and XA, which is the highest across goals and assists. Salah's 0.66.
What's Son's like?
Son 0.53 non-penalty XG and XA. Like he took 1 penalty last season and scored it. out of his 17 goals. So one of them was a penalty. Jadon Sancho, 0.58 makes him the third highest out of those 6 for non-penalty XG and XA. He only scored 8 goals but he got 11 assists, but played more or less 11 games less than the rest of them, apart from De Bruyne, who played the same amount. So yeah, Sancho really, really interests me out of these 6, especially at that 9 million mark. Like between him and Mahrez, if I wanted to go for one of them over Bruno, I'd be going Sancho, because then I'm still getting those other United players around him, like we've just spoken about, and that I'm confident with. There, I don't think there should be any rotation risk, especially with Rashford out for long term. Like if he's being rotated with anyone, it would be like Dan James or Ahmed Diallo, and I can't see either of them really starting ahead of him. I think Solskjaer will want to use these opening games that are slightly more favourable to kind of try and bed him in and get him sort of firing, especially after the disappointment of the Euros final.
So, from a stats point of view, then it's basically telling us that Bruno's the worst when you take away penalties out of the premiums. Is that right?
Penalties and assists, he is 4th, the worst of Mahrez and Son at 0.53.
Interesting.
Bruno is 0.55 for
Including,
non-penalty.
sorry, when you take away non-penalty.
So non-penalty expected goals and expected assists.
And KDB's top.
Yeah, 0.79. So this is all per 90 as well. And then Salah's 0.66. And then Sancho at 0.5.
So why are we not considering KDB over Bruno then? Fixtures, like you said earlier.
Fixtures.
This is what I'm trying to work
I think,
out. But does the fixtures matter with City? This is the thing, right?
I think there's also, I think it's the fixtures, the rotation. It's
KDB's
weird.
Not going to get rotated.
But there'll be games where it's really comfortable and he gets taken off at 60 minutes.
But remember, we're talking the first 6 game weeks where there's
and
no
if I'm spending that money on KDB and Kane has gone to City, would I rather spend that money on Harry Kane?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And I think that's probably a lot of the reason why not many people are talking about KDB to start off with. They want to see if this Harry Kane move comes about. I mean, at the end of the day, if he does go there, then will he be match fit, missing out on the first 3 days of training back at Spurs? Who knows?
So the
other thing we saw last season is KDB. He did that's expected goals and assists, and he only got 6 goals last season. I only got 6. I mean, and he only played 25, whilst Bruno, Salah, Son all played 37 out of 38 games. But they're all hitting double figures. Like Son got 17, Bruno got 18, Salah got 22, KDB got 6 at 0.27 per 90. Whilst there's other players there, like the other 3, Son was 0.49, but they're all over 0.5 per 90 goals per 90. So that's the other thing that concerned me with City. And when we went through that stage where Gundogan was scoring a lot, KDB was dropping a little bit deeper, and Gundogan was further forward. I'd want to see how the City side performs, and like I said, if Kane does go there, I'm spending that money on Kane. I'm not spending it on Kevin De Bruyne for
Well,
now, because I mean, you could ask me in at the time. Oh, pardon me. At the time I go to wildcard, and I might go, yeah, I don't want either Bruno or I don't want Salah, and I'll have Kane and KDB.
well, my current draft that I've got, and we'll go through them shortly. I've squeezed in Bruno, Salah, and Son, but my team is quite unbalanced, I feel. And after this conversation, I feel like I need to take Son out.
Yeah, I really like him as an asset.
Lucas, do you know what?
But I
I know
think
we're talking about premium.
if it wasn't for that Man City fixture in game week 1, I would probably be thinking about having Son in my team. If we started the season in game week 2, I would have Son in my team. Wolves
Well,
away,
I
I'd
know
go for it.
I know we're talking about premiums, but I really like the look of Lucas in season in the friendly so far, and I'm thinking I could downgrade Son to Lucas
That's like
and save.
it's like a cover.
Not really as a cover,
I
but
think
as a bit of a bit of kind of Spurs in there.
and we know with Lucas that there will be times when Son drifts out onto the wing and Lucas fills in that hole, because they play very, like, their movement and everything's very, very similar. Very like sort of off the shoulder, beat the man for pace, a bit of skill. It's just Son is just an unbelievable finisher. Probably the best, yeah, probably the best in the league. Um, yeah, there's an argument you could go with Lucas over Son. And I think if I was starting, if I wanted to go with that from game week 1, I probably would, because it's considerable amount of money less to invest in. That first fixture, it's got car crash for Spurs written all over it.
Yeah.
Really, it really does. I fear for them in that first game week.
Right. Okay. I think that's enough on premium midfielders then. Let's have a look at our drafts.
Yes.
Do you want to bring up yours first, or do you want to go through mine first?
Let's go with mine first. So after the news today, so I did have Watkins in my team, but after today's news, I have upgraded him to Danny Ings. So I think that's just a brilliant signing, and as we said at the start of the show, like I think it's a great signing, a great transfer window for Villa, and I think they've picked up a player in Danny Ings that he's going to get the supply that he wasn't getting at Southampton. He's not going to get the pressure that he got when he went to Liverpool a few years ago, and it kind of fell apart for him, and injury played a part in that as well. But I could see him sort of taking that talisman role that's been left behind by Grealish, and being a kind of a leader of that side, because he's the most experienced in that side. So yeah, I'm thinking he'll probably stay in my team now, along with Calvert-Lewin and Antonio as my front three, which I really like as a front three. My midfield, I've got Bruno and Salah. Salah will be my captain game week 1. I think his EO. If we're going to go back to EO, and it's going to be well over 100% come deadline. So yeah, Salah captain and not taking any risks game week 1. Got Buendia, but with Ings being there, I might look at another sort of 6.5 midfielder to come in.
I think Buendia becomes a better option now.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk that him as that number 10, he becomes almost nailed with no Grealish. So yeah, I'm just, do I want to double up? They've got the fixtures though, so it's one that I'll look at, but it might be a case that I'll stay over it. On my bench, I've got Jack Harrison. He's obviously got the tough fixture against Man United on game week 1, but Leeds do have favourable fixtures after that. Couldn't quite squeeze the money up to Rafinha. But I think Jack Harrison's a nice option instead of him. And then I've got Billy Gilmore at 4.5, playing 4.5 midfielder that's going to have some set pieces and be involved in the Norwich side. I can't argue with. My back line at the moment, I've got Brandon Williams on the bench. He looks like he's off out on loan to Norwich. Is it Norwich?
Yeah.
Southampton.
No, Norwich. Norwich now.
It's to Norwich. So yeah, he'll be starting right back. It's making me rethink for some reason I thought it was Southampton. It's making me rethink my Gilmore pick now. I might go with a different 4.5. But then, yeah, aiming to start game week 1 with TAA, Luca Dean, Ben White, and Joel Veltman as my back 4. Veltman may change because I'm still unsure about investing in a double Brighton defence. As I have Sanchez in goal in game week 1, I've got Gaeta on the bench at the moment, so I want to have a bit of a rotation for my goalkeepers and for my mini league. Gaeta could easily become backman or one of the Newcastle goalkeepers, probably Dubravka. But I'm happy where it is at the moment. I don't think there's many like alarms going off when I look at the team. It's very safe, which is probably the one negative. Like, I think there'll be a lot of teams out there that look very similar to this come the deadline. So, yeah, is it worth swapping a couple of like 1 or 2 of the players out for try and find some of these Moneyball differentials out there? Because Buendia's one that was top of the list. Ivan Toney as well, who I could easily swap for either any of the front 3 to free up that money to go Harrison to Rafinha. Like that could work out. So yeah, a few things to ponder in the coming week, but I think that probably 6 or 7 of those players will definitely be there in come this time next week as we head towards the deadline. Any comments from you? Give me your worst.
The only thing, I really like it, Rob. I think it's great. The only thing that I would say that I would change is depending, and I'm sure you'll probably do this anyway, but depending on who you bring in for Veltman, I'd probably start Harrison, even though they are playing Man United. I can easily see Leeds scoring a goal or 2. Yeah, if it's like a big, 6-2 thriller.
I'm banking on Varane coming in and being like unstoppable, and this United defence just becoming a brick wall.
I do prefer Harrison over a 4.5 defender. That's the only thing that I would say. Other than that, I think it looks really good.
Cool. Let's have a look at your team and how your ownership strategy is looking like.
So, yeah, I'm struggling with the ownership strategy. I'm not going to lie, because so just for the benefit of those that are on the audio, I'll talk you through my side at the moment. So I've got Sanchez in goal, Dean, Ben White, TAA in defence, and Mbeumo from Brentford, and then Salah, Son, Bruno, and who was that there? Buendia. And then up front, I've got Watkins. No, sorry, I took out Watkins. I've now got Antonio, Tony, and Davis as my bench fodder. Striker with Ayling and Brandon Williams, Forster on the on the bench. So the reason why I'm struggling is because I really liked Son, and I thought with Kane potentially going, or even if he stays, I think Son is going to be a really good option, and he's had a good preseason. But it's really unbalanced my side. I've had to put Mbeumo in there. I don't really want to, Brentford attack. And I've only got 6 out of the top 16 of the ownership on here. So out of all the highest percentage owned, I've only got 6, whereas I should be more heading towards 8, I would say. Now I can make a couple of changes. So if I take out Son and bring in Lucas, I can then bring in DCL, for example, who's up there. I can bring in Shaw. The only reason I took out Shaw is because I didn't think he was going to start game week 1. But if he's going to start game week 1, I have to have him in there if he's the second highest owned percentage in the game. I have to.
Yeah.
He's 48% owned. I have to have him in there. Like, there's no shadow of a doubt. Which therefore means I need to lose players and put more money in. So I've got some work to do on this. But this is the problem with this strategy. And I'm like, I haven't even started the strategy. We haven't even got to game week 1. And I'm thinking, oh, fuck, why do I have to stick with this fucking strategy? But I know it's my FPL head is going, but I feel like this player is going to do really well, i.e. Son. But I can't fit him in to this ownership strategy. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you've got like we spoke about when we spoke about the strategy. Like you've got to obviously be aware of like your own feeling, like your gut feelings and everything as well. But I think what we've spoken about in the last sort of 20 minutes, 25 minutes about Son in particular, it's kind of gone. I think you're probably leading towards, and you said you're leading towards being able to probably feeling a bit better about not having him in there now.
Yeah.
I think we've seen in the last few days there's been a lot of talk in the Twitter community and a little bit of a bandwagon maybe building towards Son because Kane is leaving. And yeah, over the course of the season, Son will be a great asset. Like over the course of the season, will he be a great asset in the first few game weeks? I'm not sure until we see what happens with the ridiculous amount of money that they're going to get for Kane. They might go and spend 30, 40 million of it on another striker. They could spend 100 million on a striker. But
I think the thing about Son, you listen to James from Planet FPL, who's a diehard Spurs fan, and I don't think there is bias in this. And he's like 100% without a shadow of doubt, I'm having Son. And it just makes you think, fuck, if he's having Son and he knows Spurs inside out and he's watched all their pre-seasons and he knows what they're going to be like when they're with Kane and without Kane and all of that, then shouldn't a lot of us be doing the same thing? If he knows them inside out.
There's an argument for it, but you've also, I think it's about having a sensible head about it. Like I also heard him say on the Spurs podcast, over the course of the season, Son, like he will have a Son, and he'll be a great asset for the course of the season because he is a midfielder that he will score probably 20 goals this season if he's playing as a number 9. He'll score at least 20 goals this season. Will those goals come? How many of those goals are going to come before your first wild card?
Yeah.
The other thing about this, what you got to ask yourself, whilst if you go, like you might lose out on 1 week of him playing. He goes and bags a brace against City. Like, who cares? Like at the end of the day, like he's not owned by a huge amount. His current ownership is. You've probably got it quicker than me. Current ownership 17.1%. So it's not bad, but it's not like over 20%, over 25%, up in the ranges of Luke Shaw, Mohamed Salah, Bruno Fernandes. It's 17%. Like, it's not going to be a season-ending occurrence if he bags a brace against City and gets a double-digit haul and you haven't got him. And I that could happen, but what's the likeliness of it happening?
I think the other thing with this strategy that I'm struggling with is I really don't want Bruno. Like, I don't want him. Like, and with this strategy,
you're going to be
I
stuck
have
with
to
him.
have him.
Yep, you're going to be stuck with
him.
him. You're going to be stuck with
And-
him at least until when everyone wildcards and people move to the likes of Sancho, or like with this United team, it's going to be very new. And I think it's going to be a slightly different system about the way that they play, especially with the ball in that final third. And yeah, I think like Bruno could score, like, and he probably will like score the same amount of points as he has in the last couple of seasons. But there is a part of me that thinks he could end up dropping a little deeper, especially when Rashford is fit. And if Greenwood, Martial, Cavani, Sancho, they're all on fire. Rashford comes back and he's on fire. Does Ole Gunnar Solskjaer try and work things out so that he plays just one holding, like he plays whoever the new holding midfielder is, and puts Bruno into the pivot like he does for Portugal? Because we would have sold Pogba by then.
And I know a lot of people will be listening to this and thinking, well, why do you have to go with the ownership? You know, don't worry about ownership. And, you know, you listen to a lot of podcasts and all, you know, at the moment, there's a lot of podcasts with, you know, tips for the season and what to do and what not to do. And every single one, like bar none, every single one has said, don't worry about ownership. Because it will just create FOMO. Don't worry about ownership. Pick the players that you think are going to score the most. Don't worry about ownership. And here I am going, fucking hell, I only want Bruno because of ownership. like they're saying that what I think, like I listened to General's pod and he was like, pick players that you think are going to score the points, but don't. So he was giving the example about Tony, right? Because he was saying he doesn't like picking new players to the Premier League. But he had Tony in and he was going to ask himself the question next week, have I got Tony in because I think Tony's going to perform, or have I got Tony in only because of he's highly owned? And if it's because
ownership.
he's only, and if it's because he's only highly owned, then he's going to take him out. So that's the kind of thing. But the thing is, I know this strategy works because I did this strategy 3 seasons ago when I finished 6,000 and I was 1,000 at Christmas, and I did exactly this strategy. So I know that it works, but will it work this season? I don't know.
No, it's like I saw someone tweet earlier and they said, my one piece of advice for the season is follow the effective ownership. That was his one piece of advice. So basically, make your team the highest owned team overall, and that should should see you push high up, and then once you're up there, then it's all about those sort of 2 or 3 differentials. But if everyone's got Bruno, I think you kind of have to follow the crowd a bit, and it's a huge gamble to not follow the crowd a bit,
especially with this strategy, because it fucks it all up. If I don't go Bruno and I'm going this ownership strategy, then it fucks everything up.
Yeah, it's I've toyed with the idea, like I said earlier, of having Sancho over Bruno as some United cover, but with Sancho coming back, and the doubt of him maybe not starting in game week 1, I went back to Bruno again, and that having the simple thing of having Sancho in my team instead of Bruno meant Buendia becomes Gundogan. Like, very easily, and I can go with Sufal over Veltman very easily.
Yeah.
And like just that one simple move, and I think it left 0.5 in the bank, like to do what I want. Like, and if Henderson is nailed as the United keeper, I can do a goalkeeper transfer at some point if I need to burn one or something like that. So yeah, it just there was that. It was quite comforting knowing that, and if we get past game week 1 and Sancho starts game week 1, well, I might even make the move after game week 1 and go, oh fuck it, let's go Bruno to Sancho if I'm not happy with how Bruno's played. And yeah, it might feel right, or it might feel like I wasted a transfer doing it, but I think you learn a lot, especially in the first sort of 3 to 5 game weeks. And when we spoke last week about the wildcard strategies and how we want to gain information about the new players and the new teams in the league before hitting that wildcard. And I think it's the same with your differential picks and your little gambles here and there, and with teams that have got new managers. Like, we may know the players from Spurs, we may know the players from Wolves, from Everton, but they've all got brand new managers. We don't know how they are going to play. We know the players, but we don't know whether the system they're going to play is the same, how the players have settled into that new system, how they're going to perform, etc., etc. And like, we can look at stats from last year and go, "Oh, Son didn't perform well out of all of those," but in the new system, because there will be a new system that Nuno's come in with, because the Mourinho system was not working for them. So Nuno's going to have come in and shaken things up a little, and it might make Son's stats even better. But if we went back and looked at those same 6 players after 10 game weeks, we might see him at the top of that pile, but we might still see him at the bottom of that pile.
Yeah. Okay, right. That wraps up the drafts. Did we have any Twitter questions?
We had one, which we've briefly touched on, but I've just quickly brought up some stats, and it's Harrison over Rafinha. Can
We
you
spoke
sell?
about that last week, didn't we?
I think briefly, or did we not? Did this person ask the
No,
question last week and we
I don't
didn't
think
answer?
this person asked the question, but I think someone else asked the question and said Harrison over Rafinha.
So I've quickly just brought up some stats on the two of them, because they both played the same number of games. Harrison started a couple of games more. Similar goals per 90, like Harrison 0.25, Rafinha 0.23. Assists per 90 is Rafinha at 0.36. Then expected goals per 90, very even, 0.21 for Harrison, 0.23 for Rafinha. Assists 0.3 for Rafinha, 0.22 Harrison. And then the shot creating actions, Rafinha 133 to Harrison's 104. Goal creating actions, Rafinha 20 to Harrison's 15. It does lead me towards, like, if both were priced the same, I'd go Rafinha. But that tells me why Harrison's 0.5 less. Although at times, I think it was every time I owned Rafinha last season, Harrison went and scored, and then when I moved it over to Harrison, Rafinha got an assist or something ridiculous like that. So yeah, I think it's all personal to your own team. That was from Stian. Yeah, I think it's personal to your own team. He says he can't make up his mind. Bad idea or a safe differential. I think it's a safe differential, and it saves you 0.5. If you don't need that 0.5 for anything. Just go with Rafinha, I think. Yeah, if you need that 0.5 to go into making someone into Watkins into Ings, if you need that 0.5 to do that move, because a lot of people are looking for that 0.5 to do that move after the news today, then yeah, go with Harrison. I've gone with Harrison, and he's very likely to stay in my team. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yes,
Exactly.
the short answer gives the short answer.
Yeah.
Other than that, there was someone in my WhatsApp chat that said, "Can you give me some advice on how to win my mini league?" And I said no, because I'm in your mini league and I don't want to give you that advice. So you'll have to find somewhere else for that mini league. I mean, I think towards the end of the season we'll do I think we could do a mini league special one evening, and we can talk about how we're doing in. We'll, won't take the mini league we're both in or the podcast mini league, but we'll take a couple of random mini leagues that we might be doing quite well in, and we could just talk about how we look to attack those mini leagues in the last few game weeks to try and win them. That's saying that we're up there in those mini leagues to win them, but I think it would be interesting to do a mini league special to help people out, because a lot of people, they don't care about the overall rank, they just care about winning their work mini league and winning the non-cash prize that comes with it. So yeah, which leads us on to our wrapping up.
Yep, go for it.
God, I'm getting to do all the talking for once.
I know.
So we've got our mini league for the podcast, the FPL Happy Hour Podcast mini league. The code is 1PQSLT. You'll find the link to the mini league at the bottom of the YouTube description, at the bottom of the podcast description, and the code's there as well. There's a lot of people in it. I haven't even double checked it recently, but it's growing. There's a lot of people in there. The first prize for that is a shirt of your choice that will get a name and number on the back, which may be ours, maybe yours, or maybe someone you might want to give it away as a gift, and it might be someone else's name.
We've got just less than 100.
Just less than 100. I reckon let's get it up to 300 odd. And we might throw in an odd manager of the month prize as well, if we can. Yeah, we'll say that. Let's get it up to 300, and we'll throw in a little something as a manager of the month prize. It won't be anything big. I don't know what we'd send.
Not every month.
Not every month, just months we choose. months we like, we'll send out a prize for manager of the month. Also on top of that, yeah, you'll also see in the description a link to my league, the Big FPL Mini League, which is currently sitting at about 192 entrants, I think, earlier this evening. So, yeah, a prize pool of 4 figures, well over 4 figures, raising money for my local football club. I had a chat with their fundraising guy last night. Yeah, last night. Yeah, so some of that money is going on. So the fundraising money this year, they've got a golf day in a couple of weeks as well, is going on some kit and equipment for the youth development side. So it's the under 19 side. It's like the bridge between the youth football and the men's football. It's going towards some general stuff for around the ground and in the facilities of the ground, some just general upkeep, how with the changing rooms and stuff like that, because it's all looking a bit tatty after not really being used much in the last couple of years or year and a half. So yeah, it's out of the entries, it's about £1 per entry goes towards that, which it's great. Last year they used the money for some new kit and equipment for one of the youth sides, and relay. Well, it didn't pay for the relaying of the pitch, but it went towards the relaying of the pitch and some dugouts and everything. So the club's looking to move forward. They have a vision to move forward into the county league and try and build on that. And it also paid for a defibrillator for the local village as well, which was really good, especially with everything we've seen over the summer. So yeah, get involved. Again, the form description will be at the bottom, or just drop me a DM on Twitter, or drop a comment underneath, and we'll get in contact about it. That's about it. And then next week,
podcasts next week.
yeah. Oh, I've got to announce this as well. You're just sitting there doing nothing. You're like, oh, I'll just sit back.
Makes a change, isn't it?
Yeah. So next week we're back to our usual schedule. So we'll be back to 2 podcasts a week. The first one will be released on Tuesday morning, which will we'll put a poll out for a community topic again. We might just put out the 2 topics that we've put out every week and let you pick one of them. And then we'll discuss something else, which might be just the other topic that doesn't win the poll, or it might be we'll see how the weekend goes and what news comes about. So that's Tuesday, and then on Thursday night we'll be returning with, it's not late night lockdown anymore, or late night lock-in anymore. It is FPL Happy Hour Last Orders, which some of you may have seen during the Euros, but yeah, we're going to keep that name, and it'll be some point on Thursday evening. We'll obviously post out a time closer to the time, but it'd be probably around sort of 9:30ish. So yeah, where we'll be going through our locked-in teams. There'll be a live Q&A. We'll have a couple of other little discussion points to cover any sort of last-minute decisions that are sort of hanging around in the community. And if you can't make it for the live show, then the audio will be released as soon as physically possible. Normally we'll just take the audio and I'll stick it onto our podcasts within sort of half an hour afterwards, so that it's ready for you to listen on your way to work the first thing next morning. So yeah, that's next week. Back to normal.
Perfect.
Back to busyness.
That's it. Right. That's the end of another show. So thanks for tuning in. You can find us on Twitter at FPL_Happy Hour. We're also on our usual number of podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, loads of them. And our YouTube channel is FPL Happy Hour. Please like, subscribe, share, and all your retweets are really appreciated. So until next week, take care.
Cheers, guys. Good night.